Well, we're joined here today with Miss Mary Norris, and we're going to talk about a homicide that happened, and the anniversary is coming up on April 12th, and the homicide involved your son, Frederico. First of all, can you just tell us who he was as a person?
Well, my son was a person that had a lot of life, enjoyed singing, dancing, and most of all, he enjoyed his two daughters.
Two daughters. What were their names? How old are they?
Okay, one of them is Ree, she's 10, and one of them is Zyree, which is 12. And he would always say, I love them to the moon and back. They was the centerpiece of his life.
How are they doing now?
Well, Sunday, they seem to be doing okay.
Considering
That they're used to their father bringing them Easter basket, and then yet they would have to go out to the cemetery.
Cemetery, right?
Yeah.
How old was he?
Now Frederico was 31.
31.
He was 31 when he was murdered.
Can you walk us through that night?
It is pretty much a mystery because we have no answers, no closure, not even a reason why. I was personally told of someone that may have murdered my son.
Right. Well, let's if we could. I know it's difficult, but it's almost 2 years to the date that you got the call. Did someone call you? And
Actually,
tell you
someone. I received a phone call exactly about 2:30, between 2:30. But my son was announced dead approximately 2:06 a.m. And maybe 30 minutes later, I received a call saying that Frederico has been shot.
Okay.
And I was like, shot? And they was like, yes, he was shot over here at Ticket Lane, which is no more than 5 minutes from where I live. And when I get to Ticket Lane, you would have never known anything taking place out there.
So by the time you got to Tiki Lane, there was no indication of anything happening.
No yellow tapes, everything was dark.
So why it had moved?
Then I get another call saying, come to Tom Thumb on 29.
Okay.
So when I made it to Tom Thumb, which I wasn't allowed to go and view the body, it was just covered with a sheet, and that's that's like the ending of his life, but yet it's the beginning of his family needing answers.
Right. Totally different chapter of your life.
It's a whole chapter, whole nother.
When you got that phone call, did you believe it?
You know what? When I got the call, I didn't scream. I didn't even yell. I was like, shot. Then I get a call and say, he's dead. And I'm like, dead? So I called my oldest son. Because my oldest son, he was a brother. He was a brother, but he also was someone that he can go to, like a best friend that he could just tell him anything.
Right.
And I asked him, I said, did you hear that Frederico was shot? And he said, Mama, who told you that? And I said, well, I just got a call. And it just has been a mess.
Right.
It's been almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years.
And we're working on the case on this side of it. Are you hearing anything out there? Are you wanting people to speak up?
I would love for
somebody knows something.
There's nothing done in darkness.
Right.
That won't come to the light. It's rather someone bring it, God to have his way of bringing it to the table.
Well, and when we investigate things, obviously we put every available resource we can into investigating it, but we can't be everywhere. And obviously we weren't there at the time that it happened. So we oftentimes reach out to the public and we say, hey, if you know something, please say something, let us know. Call Crime Stoppers. You can do it anonymously. And the reason we're here is because we want people to know we are not giving up on this case. This is a terrible tragedy, something that obviously hit home to you. And we certainly appreciate you being here because people need to know
I appreciate
this is
being
not
here.
something you just read on the newspaper.
No,
This is real.
it's
This is
real.
personal, and you have lived with this every day for
Every
2
day.
years.
Yes.
So if you can tell anyone that's viewing it any one thing or make one request, what would that be?
I would have to ask the one that murdered my son to let him know it may not have been okay, but it's all right. So please come forward. Or if there's someone that knows more about the case, whether it's a small piece of information that you may think not enough to give, please give it. Because there are cases that's been solved just from the string of someone's hair.
Right. And again, this has affected you and your family.
It has affected my family, loved ones, the community, because he was born and raised right here in Pensacola.
He was one of our own.
He's one of our own. And most of all, his daughters. That's what hurts the most,
I bet.
his daughters.
Not a day goes by.
I mean, for them to come up without their father or seeing them going to prom or seeing they, graduate and all that was just cut short for them.
Yes.
And they don't understand.
And they may never understand because you may never understand. And
I still don't
oftentimes
understand.
we don't understand how
I
things like this
ask
happen.
God to lead me through, not my own understanding, because I don't. And I wasn't there.
There's a lot of times we hear these cases, we see them on the news, and it's something that's in our minds right there as it's happening. But people often forget that pain for the families of the victims
Never go away.
never goes away.
I mean, it seemed like as last year was harder than the day that we buried him.
Right.
This year was even harder because there's his daughters that are young and wanting their father, needing their father. And it hurt deep. And it hurt not just the parents of Federico, but his brothers and sisters and his grandparents. Oh my God, he loved his grandparents. He could never do nothing wrong in the sight of his grandparents.
That's the best thing about grandparents.
I know. I think I'm one of them.
Exactly. Well, and as the children and your grandchildren get older, it's going to be more difficult in many ways because they have a greater understanding of what they've lost, what's missing in their life.
And more
I
questions
noticed,
than answers.
Yeah.
You brought a picture in, and
I
it shows
did.
your son sitting on rocks, full of life.
Full of life. Full of life. Oh, he loved to dance. He was a praying young man. He was always thankful. Oh, he would be so thankful. I mean, you could give him a piece of bread. Lord, thank you. Yeah, he was something else. Very well missed and loved. It's just, we endure every day of thanking God to give us the strength to get through that day. And I want to say that to whoever killed him, if it's painful for the ones that loved him, it got to be painful and got to be hard for them as well to rest at night. Because there are nights I can't sleep. And I just don't see how they could be resting.
Right.
And I just wish they would come forward. There's no hatred in my heart because my son is forever gone. And I can't see the 31 years of the beauty that I have with him if I have hate in my heart. And I spoke with his father, and his father was like, Ruth, they call me Ruth. Ruth, I don't hate whoever killed our son. I just want them to come forward. And I just want, not just for me, we have a lot of families right here in Pensacola that are going through the same thing that I'm going through.
Right. Too many.
You know, we have a lot of
There's a
people
lot of grieving
that
mothers out
have
there.
been murdered, kidnapped, abducted. That we need answers. We need closures.
And that's what it's about. It's about closure. It's about finding out what happened, why it happened, and who did it. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously that part is our responsibility. But we reach out to the public and we say, hey, we need your help. We need every piece of information that you have, even if you don't think it's significant. Even if you think, well, it's really not anything, or someone else has probably told that information. Give us a call and let us know.
Yeah.
Call Crime Stoppers. Again, you can do it anonymously because it's about closure for you, closure for his daughters. It's closure for our community.
For the community.
Yeah. So we can finally get to where in a place where we know what happened.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time to share a little bit.
Thank y'all for
about
having
him.
me.
Thank
I
you so
mean-
much. We want to get this out there. And again, if you know anything about this case or have any information, you can contact Crime Stoppers at 433-STOP. Remain anonymous. Get that tip out there. We'd love to solve this case. Or you can call us at the Sheriff's Office at 436-9620. And again, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you all for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Escambia County Sheriff David Morgan, and thank you for watching Ask the Sheriff. This is your chance to ask me any questions you want answered about the ECSO. Our team hits the streets again, and here are some of the questions you asked.
Is it hard to be a sheriff deputy? And what are the qualifications for it?
Well, the qualifications are basic. You have to be 21 years old, complete the academy. We ask that you have a Florida driver's license, and so many of the qualifications are set not by us, but by the state. And of course, you have to attend here locally. It's called George Stone, which is one of our vocational academies here in Escambia County, and that's actually ran by the superintendent of schools, Malcolm Thomas. And once you complete the academy, then you come to the Escambia County Sheriff's Office and you go through what we call a local upgrade training program. You're assigned to a field training officer, an FTO, and you have additional weeks of training that you have to do there. And once you complete all that, then you're basically fully certified as a law enforcement officer. You have to sit for and pass a state examination, which is part of that process. Then the real hard part begins, and that's where you'll work shift work for several years before you're eligible for promotion, or you get what we call a day shift. So it's tough to be a sheriff's deputy today. You know, just the work schedule itself and the training that's required, because once you're done with all that, it's not over. We have continuing education requirements, and deputies are always being trained in the latest changes to the law. They have to go to the range and qualify annually. So the training and the education never stops as a deputy sheriff. And then on top of that, we have to deal with people that, you know, really don't have our best interest at heart. They want to bring or do harm to our community. You know, some sell drugs, some abuse children and women, and I should say spouses. And so it's deputies that stand between that bad person and you. So it's very, very difficult to be a deputy. And also today, you know, many times we don't get a lot of really good press, and people don't hear about the good things that deputies do, like Milkshake with a Cop, where you get to come out and see deputies in a whole different light. So yes, when you see deputies, just remember that like everyone else, while they have to have a smile on their face and always be courteous in every situation, they too may be having a bad day. So if you see a law enforcement officer, you know, just to thank you for what you do goes a long way. Judy asked a question about, hurricane preparedness procedures. Judy, I will tell you that we're past masters in Escambia County on responding to hurricanes as a result of years ago when we had Hurricane Opal and Hurricane Aaron, and then Dennis later, and then of course we were on the outer bands of Katrina. But you have an emergency operations center here in Escambia County, and young men and women at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office that are truly past masters at responding to natural disasters. Mr. John Dosh, who heads up our Emergency Ops Center in Escambia County, has won so many state and national awards for his abilities to orchestrate our response to this. And then of course everything from not only law enforcement but to your fire department, to EMS, and our local hospitals. Everybody works in conjunction to include the Highway Patrol on our response for evacuation and extraction of people. The plans are reviewed every year when we get into hurricane season for updating. We do an inventory at all of our precincts throughout the county, which are strategically placed. Do we have sufficient water supplies and MREs? We check our chainsaws, do they still work? Do we have sufficient gas? Are all the vehicles prepared to respond? And then all that's coordinated for what we do in law enforcement for evacuation and securing scenes, again, in our partnership with the Emergency Operations Center. So we all respond there, and I will tell you that Escambia County is probably the best place to live if there's going to be a natural disaster, just because of the team of professionals that we have here. But the answer to your question is yes. You tune into the local radio stations, WCOA. You'll get notifications over the radio, and the nice thing about a hurricane is it's not a sudden event. We get days and weeks advance, by tracking through the National Weather Service and when they're coming in our direction. And again, if you watch your television or listen to your radio, you'll get periodic updates on the status of the storm, where it's at. Has it been upgraded from a tropical storm, or it actually starts as a depression to a tropical storm to a hurricane, and what actions you should take on the part of a citizen. If we get anything above a tropical storm or Cat 1, normally evacuation procedures are implemented and you're asked to evacuate the area. If you choose to remain, it's at your own risk, because we won't be able to do extractions of people or rescue people, because we also we will sit in our precincts, and basically what we do is we are in place until the hurricane passes, and then we go out to clear major arteries and roadways, and that's why we have chainsaws to assist the fire department and EMS and other emergency response people to get in there to make those extractions at that time and to rescue people. So, we ask that you follow all of those directions. It's for your personal safety, but, there are always people who say, well, I'm going to ride the hurricane out. There's still people who, in today's world, I find it hard to believe, they throw hurricane parties as if it's something that we should be celebrating. You're placing your life at risk and the risk of other law enforcement and emergency operations people responding to assist you. So again, we just ask you follow all the directions, and your family and your property will be as safe and secure as we can make it. But those things are reviewed annually and updated as necessary, and we're ready to respond in Escambia County.
Name one thing that you're in an apartment that you do not have the authority to change, but you would like to change.
Joy, that's an excellent question, and it kind of gave us all pause when you asked that question. If I could change one thing at the sheriff's office, what would that be as sheriff? What would I change if I could do it basically today? I think it would be to streamline so many of our programs. I will use an example of when I first became the sheriff in Escambia County. We have a very robust chaplains program. And at that time, I also had the jail program, I operated the Escambia County Jail. And we had chaplains on the law enforcement side and chaplains on the correctional side. And right after I was elected, I'm getting these phone calls from all these chaplains wanting to meet with me and talk about, chaplain or faith issues at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office and how we provide certain information, et cetera, to our officers. And then I'd get calls from the corrections side, from both the inmates and the correctional officers. Well, as you can well imagine, I'm getting inundated, because at one time we had a volunteer chaplain staff of about 17. Well, all 17 people are calling me wanting to meet me for either lunch or dinner, and so I'm kind of running in circles trying to meet that. So after about the 6th or 7th call, I said, stop, time out. Do we have a head chaplain? Do we have someone in charge of our chaplaincy for both law enforcement and corrections? And how about we all get together for a luncheon and discuss these issues instead of me running to 17 different people, trying to remember what I said to the last one and the one before that and the one before that, so we can establish a very consistent program. This also applies to so many of our programs in the government. Specifically, I'm going to discuss the rehabilitative side. Here in Escambia County, we have just almost an unmentionable number, if you will, of folks involved in the very same activity, drug rehabilitation. We have those that are secular, those that are religious. We have those that receive or are totally dependent upon state funding, and those that rely solely upon contributions from our community. And they all have the same goal, but none of them appear to be working together a lot. And so we're parsing out a lot of money to these different organizations, again, both state-ran, secular, religious, etc. And we're not on the same page. And I've always kind of wondered, if I had the authority to do that, why I wouldn't try to consolidate so many of these programs. Youth diversion programs is another excellent example. How we could probably do a tremendous amount of more good for these individuals needing this help if we could consolidate all of that funding into one place. And then throw into the mix, I have athletic stars that want to start their own 501c3s for diversion programs for young men and young women. So what we tend to do here at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, even though I don't have the authority obviously to change that, what I do is I select through research those programs that I know have a proven track record here in Escambia County. I'll mention a couple here. PACE Center for Girls, excellent organization, excellent program, a tremendous amount of return on the investment that we have with them. We partnered with them about 3 or 4 years ago. Started with small contributions, inching those up now to where I think we give between $10,000 and $15,000 a year now to PACE Center for Girls. But just an outstanding program that takes at-risk youth, in this case young women, in Escambia County, and turns their lives around. So, but I've always wondered if we could expand the PACE Center for Girls so we would have the ability to literally intake all the young women in Escambia County that are having those sorts of issues, and what tremendous amount of good we could do. But as with all things, when we have so many programs and everybody's competing for the dollar, needing to keep their program afloat and to make sure that they're adequately funded, I think we disperse or we dilute our ability to do the best good for our community. So I think I would probably change that. I would say let's all try to get on the same page.
The question is about firearm safety and what the course requires, and how are you going to be teaching it, and how are you going to be setting it up?
Tyler's question is one we get very regularly, and it's about the offering of firearm safety courses at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. Tyler, we do not, and that's one of our cost-saving measures that we implemented back in 2009 when budgets were a little larger some years ago. We did offer that. Now, you can pick up your concealed carry package, meaning your application for the state, but there are several firearms groups here in town, gun clubs, that offer NRA certified and state certified courses for you to, again, get the required safety training and firearms training prior to making your application. I will also add that if you are an honorably discharged veteran from the armed forces, that all is required to make your application is a certified copy of your DD Form 214. Because why? All basic military members go through firearm safety training and basic training, which is really what is the intent and point of the concealed carry class requirement. It's not to make you an expert shot. It's to make sure that you understand firearms, firearm safety, its safe handling, and to go over the Florida statute that, again, it basically outlines the parameters of when you can and cannot carry and under what circumstances you can carry, concealed, open, and that sort of thing. So again, I would recommend you get your package here and go to one of the local gun clubs. I know Escambia River Gun Club is one. There are several in Santa Rosa, and all of them that I'm aware of that are here locally are almost all certified. They also advertise on the radio. You've got the gun club that just opened. It's an indoor range out on 29 across from Smokey's Barbecue. That also teaches firearm classes, and they have an indoor range. So again, lots of places for you to get that. And also when we have a gun show, almost every gun show will hold a couple of firearms classes per day. So you'd have 2 chances on a Saturday and 2 chances on a Sunday to attend that course. But sadly, we don't do that at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office any longer.
So I really want to get a ride-along. How do I get one, and how long do I get to be in the car?
Katie has asked how she can do a ride-along at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, and if so, how long does the ride along last? Katie, you have to come down and fill out some paperwork. As you can well imagine, we have some criteria, as with most things, that you have to go through. We will do a quick criminal history background on anyone requesting to ride at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. That means we want to make sure that you don't have a criminal history, or there aren't any active wants or warrants out for you. As you can well imagine, we want to be very careful. We don't want someone who's, say, under a domestic violence restraining order riding with one of our officers and gathering information on possibly where his victim could reside or live. And yes, we have had those instances where people wanted to ride with the sheriff's office only to gather information about a citizen that they otherwise would not have had access to. When we sign your paperwork and you're approved, you can do up to 4 ride-alongs in one given year. Again, we don't allow relatives to ride with current officers because we want to keep that separation between the two. And normally it's dependent upon the shift and the supervisor. Some of our shifts depended upon the activity that night and your willingness to stay, and again, the calls that they respond to. You can do 8 or 10 hours with an officer. Mostly though, ride-alongs will go somewhere between 4 and 6 hours. And again, if the shift load that night is very heavy, for your safety, they may ask you, to terminate the ride at that point, and you'll be brought back to the sheriff's office or wherever you've picked up your vehicle if you happen to pick them up at one of the precincts. So again, there's a lot of factors involved there, but normally people get to see enough of the law enforcement work that they want to see in their ride-along. We would also encourage you to go to our Citizens Law Enforcement Academy to learn more about law enforcement. You get to interact with a lot of people at the sheriff's office under those circumstances. We have our investigators come in and they'll brief on the homicides. Our crime scene folks come in and tell you how they collect evidence. Our PIO folks tell you how they get together and develop our press releases and how much information we can release at particular times. And so you get a really broad look at what a sheriff's office does, or really a law enforcement agency does. So in addition to your ride-along, we'd ask that you consider doing the Citizens Law Enforcement Academy. You can find out when the next class starts by going online at escambiaso.com and gather all the information you need to apply to be a member of that course. Remember, you can also email your questions and ask the sheriff at escambiaso.com. We'll be back next week right here on Blab TV, Tuesday night at 8 p.m.